We all want to get smarter with our health. We all have personalized health goals, and our journey to those health goals is so unique. But Thrive just wants to be the trusted partner to get you there. And so whether you're doing keto or you're just doing high protein or you're doing the low sugar, low carb, like all of those important lifestyle values, we're there, And then of course they're the gluten-free, they're the vegans, they're the anti-allergies, all of those. And we market to all of them, right? And so we've gotten very nuanced and sophisticated about who to market where and who our core target is versus who are some of these other niche areas.
You're listening to Retail Remix, your inside access to candid conversations with the people shaping retail's future. Here's your host, Alicia Esposito.
Amina Pasha has had an incredible career in marketing. Having spent the bulk of it at P&G, she decided when she was expecting her first child to take a big leap, to move to a new and disruptive brand, a little company called, well, The Honest Company. I guess you could say the rest is history. Today, she's at Thrive Market, serving as Chief Marketing Officer, and she's really driving the business to the next level as it continues to double down on value and what it really means to the business. During our time together, we get into the evolving role of the CMO, how marketing can influence and elevate a brand's mission and values, and perhaps most importantly, how Thrive Market is thinking about and applying all of this, and what it means for all of the different audiences that it aims to reach, engage, and convert. Listen in, because even if you're not in, say, food, CPG, or even a quote-unquote mission-based business, and let's be real, I think all businesses are mission-based businesses at this point, you'll have some great takeaways and incredibly inspirational tidbits from Amina. Amina, thanks so much for being on Retail Remix. As a fan of the brand and as a follower of your career, I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with me.
I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have so much to get into, but I do want to start out by going a little bit deeper into your career and how you've ended up at Thrive Market and the work that you're doing. So you've been in the CPG space for more than 20 years at this point. You are now obviously at Thrive Market, which is going to be the core of our convo today. But what were some career milestones that you would say brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So everything is kind of like pegged to each other. And so this journey to Thrive Market has not been linear, for sure. I actually started my marketing career at P&G. So I started in a very classical, traditionally trained way on marketing on big brands like Pantene and Crest and Pampers and whatnot. And it gave me a really great foundation. A lot of people say P&G is like getting your MBA, and it very much was so like that because I actually never went out and then got my MBA because I worked at P&G for over a decade and a half. But there was a pivotal moment, in my career at P&G, and it was when I had my first child. It got me thinking about products I put in on around me. It got me thinking about life goals, career goals. And I kept asking myself, am I going to spend the rest of my life at P&G, which I easily could have, and it would have been also financially a viable option for us as a family. But I felt there was something more. I felt there were these mission-oriented brands. I wanted to really get into mission marketing, and Honest was a brand that had been top of mind. And they had, interestingly enough, reached out when I was just about to give birth. And I was like, there's just no way I can have this conversation. But 3 months later, they circled back again, and there was just this feeling in my gut that I need to go and check this out. It's not the right timing, but a lot of times opportunities aren't. And I took the flight. That was the first time I left my child. And I came out to LA and I met with Jessica Alba. And at that time, we had a new CEO and a whole new leadership team. And I was just blown away with what they were trying to do, how they were rethinking, reinventing basically the CPG space for conscious consumers. And that was probably the biggest career move I took, coming from a big Fortune 500 company like P&G to then really working for truly a disruptor, underdog brand like The Honest Company. And I learned a tremendous amount. It was definitely not the easiest transition, but it was a transition that taught me so much more, how to be an entrepreneur, how to think left of trend, how to think big, how to be scrappy, all those things. And 2 years in, I met Nick Green, and that was another fortunate incident. And I don't think my Thrive Market job would have happened had I not worked at The Honest Company. In fact, I know it wouldn't have, because Nick Green, the founder, told me, he said, had you only worked at P&G, I may not have had this conversation. But the fact that you've done Honest and P&G makes you really interesting for Thrive Market. We had a great conversation about the company's mission, about healthy and sustainable, the intersection, about all the trade-offs today when it comes to healthy living. Healthy is considered very complicated, expensive, etc. And that conversation turned into, a job. It turned into a role. And before I knew it, I've been here 5 years. And so it's, and I look back, each of those roles that I took, whether at P&G or at Honest or now at Thrive, was instrumental for the next role that I took. And now it feels like a very linear thread in my career, but I will tell you, it was quite disjointed. And it was at that time even quite scary, going from what I was very comfortable with into an environment that was very different and very entrepreneurial. But all of those moments have led me to where I am here today. And so that has been my journey.
I love that. And I love that you had that experience, expecting your first child, where you kind of had that reckoning of sorts of like, what is really the next step for me and what makes sense for me? Do you find that you mentioned, P&G is obviously, this very large established brand. And then you have the Honest Company, which was this, disruptor in many ways, such a model, I think, for so many brands that have come after it. Did you find that those different companies stretched different creative muscles that added to, I guess, your value and your positioning to a company like Thrive Market?
Yeah, I mean, they really are so different. I remember when I worked at P&G, we worked with agencies. We had creative agencies, we had media agencies. So you were often writing briefs that were then sent to these big agencies. And they were very good at like TV and traditional media, but digital was quite a novel and new lens for them to look at. And then when I came to The Honest Company, we had our own in-house creative studio, our own in-house team. And the speed and the scale and the scrappiness at which they could work. I mean, we could be producing a TV ad for a fraction of the cost of what it would have cost us at one of these bigger companies with bigger agencies, and also the fraction of the speed without compromising on the quality. And so it really was such different experiences that I had to take what I knew and wrap it around with what I didn't know. And so one example was, coming in, having the right briefing template that would work for Honest, right? Obviously what worked at P&G wouldn't be completely reapplicable, but I knew the core of like understanding the right messaging strategy, the right target audience, how do we want to set up the campaigns, how do we want to think bigger about it, those fundamentals were the same, right? But how we got to the solution or the answer was very different, because Honest was spending like 90% of their media dollars digitally, versus at P&G, it was still 90% linear TV, right? And so these kind of nuances did make me have to stretch my thinking. And as a result, give me a more holistic purview or overview of all the different aspects of marketing and being a more end-to-end or more holistic marketer. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that really tactical example. And I guess, to that end, I do want to zoom out a little bit around the point you made of the Honest Company being a more mission-based organization, because I do think in that way, like they were one of the first in many ways. And, a lot of brands came after them, really zeroing in on their mission, their values, and large organizations like P&G have gone on to like follow suit and determine what does that mean for all of like their smaller brands. But really, I guess the heart of my question revolves around this idea of mission and values and how that has inspired a ripple effect of sorts, not just in like how retail and consumer brands create products, at a general level as brands, quote unquote, but really how that translates into the work of marketers and like the CMO, right? Like I feel like in this day and age, it's not enough just to have, say, a snappy tagline, right? But consumers want to resonate and connect with something more. So, like, what have been the big implications there, do you think, for marketing as an art and as a science, as mission and values has really come more to the forefront?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And, even though some of these small disruptor brands have a very clear mission and have very clear values, oftentimes a lot of it resides in the head of the founder. So whether it was Honest or whether it was Thrive Market, a lot of the brand values were not written down or articulated. And so one of the first things I did both at Honest and then coming in and Thrive is really sit down with the people who know the brand. So founders, OG thrivers, or honest folks who've been with the brand since the inception or for many years, and start to understand from them what the values are and what it is. And then spend time with the consumers as well, right? But a lot of the times the story does come first from the founder, because the founder has a very clear origin story. Like in Jessica's case, it was about her being pregnant and having skin issues, and then really recognizing that these laundry detergents are not safe, and why aren't they safe, and then doing the research and finding out which ingredients are good and finding out which ingredients are bad. And it was very similar in Nick Green's case, the founder of Thrive Market, where he had a Midwestern upbringing and he realized how hard his mom had to work to get healthy food on the table, how far she had to drive. The nearest grocery store was 50 miles. Then it was expensive. It was a whole procedure. And so for him, when he came across this idea, it was just a no-brainer. And so the first step was for me was to actually write down what is, not just the mission statement, but really articulating it, and every single word matters. And what does every single word mean? What are the brand core values? There are 5 key values, for example, at Thrive or even at Honest. And then how do we bring it to life? How does every touch point, not just the marketing assets, the experience, the app, the way that you're going to interface, the unboxing, all of it live up to those 5 key values, right? And so writing that down, and in fact, at Thrive, I started doing this even before I joined. I was working on what it was, trying to understand myself, that when I came in, it was within like the first 30, 60 days, we had a brand book. And then I told Nick, it's not good enough to have a brand book. We actually have to take this mission, brand values, all of this, and educate everybody in the company. So I spent the next few weeks onboarding everybody to it, not just marketers, but thinking about people who work in the operations or finance or tech or UX, so that everybody has an understanding of the brand, and left some time for questions, because they had a lot of questions about the brand and which direction are we going to go, and situational examples as well, particularly when you're a mission-led brand, like how would you deal with this scenario versus that scenario, or how does this feature ladder up to this benefit or not? And so all of that led to now a very cohesive mission and very cohesive brand, where now even as we bring in new thrivers or new employees come in, they understand what those values are, and they understand like how to operate as a trusted partner, which is our brand persona. And to me, this is the modern marketing. This is the modern brand. Like if we don't understand all of these things, and how can we win with our customer? And then you have to think, take a step back and think how everything connects. And so I remember at Honest, we had this butterfly everywhere, but we didn't connect it back to a story. And so one of the narratives that came out of Jessica's book was the butterfly effect. And I was like, we've got to connect to this all to one brand story. And it's the butterfly effect. It's the small things that lead to big changes. And that started becoming a narrative as well, right? So you have to find a way then to connect everything back to that brand and mission story, from your logo to your color palette to how you look, whether you're, in store or in the case of Thrive, online, everything has a connective tissue and a role to play. But now it ladders to a much bigger mission story. It's not just haphazard or randomly selected. Everything is thoughtfully connected back to the mission and the brand. And so when I think about the role, you talked a little bit about like, what's the role of the CMO today? It's exactly that. It's really thinking about how this brand is perceived, how this brand should be perceived, and how every aspect of the consumer journey should ladder back up to that mission and to that same experience.
I think that point about the butterfly effect is really impactful. And, obviously the founder, Nick, had this really authentic and real story and experience that really inspired him and drove him to start Thrive Market. So, before we get like super deep into all of the work that you're doing and your team is doing on the marketing side, maybe we do like a bit of a debrief on, who Thrive Market is and like what those key value props are as we consider like the end customer experience, just for those who may be unfamiliar, because I think those dots are going to be really connected, I think, as we dig a little bit further into these questions.
Yeah, I love that. So a little bit about Thrive. So Thrive, the easiest way to describe Thrive is we're a healthy and sustainable online grocer. Our mission is all about making healthy and sustainable living easy and affordable for all. We have 5 key value props, which are all about being healthy, sustainable, easy, accessible, and affordable. And our mission has honestly not changed. It's been the same mission since day one. And we use our mission truly to be that kind of North Star. So it's used for not just for who we are, but for making decisions as well. And so that's kind of Thrive Market, what our key brand values are, and how that has been pretty consistent since the inception.
That's great. So at this point, you've been with Thrive Market for more than 5 years now. You talked a little bit about this, but I would love for you to expand upon, what really motivated you to take this step into Thrive Market. You talked a little bit about the mission and how it really resonated, but is there anything else, like as far as what made you connect with the brand and the people so much to, really say, yes, I'm ready to take this next step? Because I feel like for marketers especially, it's a process to determine like, okay, not only is this role right for me, but is this business right for me as well? So is there anything there like about your process or your experience that you think would resonate with the other marketers listening to this conversation?
Yeah, I think in today's day, there's so many choices. So back to even career choices, there's infinite choices of where you can go, what you can do next. And we spend so much time in our career that it is very important to have some inflection and reflection time about it. For me, Thrive resonated very deeply personally because I am reaching a point in my health journey that it's important, not just for me, I have 2 boys, what I am consuming, but what they are consuming also. And I've got surprisingly several health issues. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism several years ago, been dealing with that journey. I have pre-diabetes. My dad had very severe diabetes. So I know it's at some point, going to be a thing. And I've just seen what an unhealthy lifestyle can actually do for you, just being in the US. And so there's just a very conscious desire for me to be in a space where I was actually living the lifestyle myself and promoting a lifestyle. And I've seen the difference with my children who are not gluten-free, but when they're eating healthier and we're having gluten-free pancakes and waffles every third day, their moods are better. They're able to be stronger in their run clubs or in their health clubs or whatnot. And they're able to do things without having those breakdowns and tantrums and highs and lows because their sugar levels are not going up and down, right? So for me, it was a very conscious decision to join Thrive. And it was a very conscious decision to continue to stay at Thrive. I actually had my second child at Thrive Market, which as a C-suite leader and other roles would be quite challenging. But because of the healthy lifestyle we promote, it felt like a natural extension to extend my lifestyle that way. And so I was able to have my second son. And, to me, the biggest reason why I've continued to stay has been that Thrive just feels more like an extension of my life than an extension of my career, which is very, very rare to find. A lot of times people segregate job versus, personal life. But to me, they're so integrated. And if you're not passionate about what you do and it's not defining who you are, then there's a disconnect. But because it's been such a connect, the past 5 years have just simply flown by. And it's felt like I've just been extending my life into doing something that I also enjoy in my career.
Wow, that's really meaningful. And I feel like when you go into every day, let alone every product or project or campaign with that feeling, it's like there's a stake in it beyond like the obvious business, right, stakes. But it's like you have a personal stake and ownership in every decision that's made, which I feel is very powerful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We often ask ourselves, are we being a trusted partner by doing XYZ? Are we making healthy easy, or did we just make healthy complicated again? So we're able to look at it through the lens of a consumer because a lot of our thrivers are in the same boat. They're living that same health conscious, sustainable lifestyle. And if we're not improving our own lives, then how can we improve the lives of our consumers? So absolutely, it's a very direct link.
Yeah. And I think personally, your point about raising your sons and having that deep connection and experience with the brand, I have a 6.5-year-old myself, and he's starting to recognize those patterns, right? And in terms of how he eats, how that impacts how he feels and even his energy levels. So it is, obviously a learning process, right? But it is a fun journey to be able to help connect those dots for him. And transparently, I am a Thrive Market customer, so he likes picking things out too. And I think a lot of families are in the same boat, right? Like they're trying to build that communication and that education within the four walls of their home, so to speak. But then at the same time, it's like getting that holistic picture of value, right? And I think, obviously there's the price component, which, is kind of unavoidable over the past year. But then value also means the ultimate benefit that you get, at least in my opinion, that you get interacting with this brand or these products. And like, to me, health and how you feel interacting with those brands and those products is a big part of that. And I guess the long-winded way to get to this question is, what are the challenges and opportunities that exist there? Like, as consumers have focused more on value and all of its dimensions and nuances, like, how does that connect to the Thrive Market brand, business model, and like really how you guys are going to market today?
Yeah, no, the question of value, I mean, it's even more pronounced now than it was before, just given the landscape that we're in. But, oftentimes brands and marketers, when they think about value, they go more to the savings route. And we were a victim of that too. For a very long time, we felt, the biggest barrier around being healthy is that it's expensive. So we're going to really talk about savings and affordability and all of that. Over the past 2 years, we've learned actually the biggest barrier around healthy is not being sure of the quality standards, right? And actually what consumers and parents in particular are looking for more, well and above and beyond savings, is actually quality, right? And really making sure that the products they're picking for themselves, for their children, are of the highest quality standards. And so earlier this year, just ahead of our big back to school campaign, we launched our quality standards. We actually published and issued what Thrive Market does to ensure we have the highest quality standards. We spend a lot of time sitting down with our merch team, who are really our underdogs in this scenario, because they do all the in-house vetting, heavy lifting, selecting of every single product, and they go down to tracing every possible ingredient. They have such stringent regulations to getting a particular brand onto our site that we only have 5,000 products. When you compare to retailers, their average is 30 to 40,000 products. We're a fraction of that. But every single product has been vetted for its quality standards. And that's the big difference when it comes to when you're choosing Thrive. We're not going to put Cheerios onto our site because we don't recommend that. We think there are multiple other brands that are going to do a better job in appeasing your taste buds, but also being low sugar and high quality and all the things, right? And so to us, the biggest value breakthrough has been this focus on quality standards. And it has permutated and reshaped our entire business model. So firstly, our member acquisition continues to grow on fire. Growing membership and subscription in today's economy is not an easy thing to do. We grew last year at over 50% memberships. And this year, comping a very high baseline, we're still growing around 20%, which has just been insane to see. The other big thing is because we focused on parents and driving value through quality, we had the biggest Q3 or third quarter that we've ever seen, both from a member growth standpoint, but from a revenue standpoint. And typically in healthy retailers and businesses, it's always January where you see, and you think about health gyms, they're all busy in January, right? For us to create a second peak season in the year, it has literally been monumental to our growth rate, right? And so the high double-digit growth rates that we're seeing, the incremental revenue that we're seeing, the incremental member growth that we're seeing, it is all coming out of defining the right value proposition to that winning audience and really just being seasonally relevant during that back-to-school campaign. And so this year we crushed it, but to me, I'm even more excited what the team's going to do for next year, because this year we didn't anticipate it. Next year we are. And so the extra planning and getting ahead, it's going to even have a bigger and more profound effect on our brand and business model. But yeah, it all boils down when you know who your customer is, you know what they value, you rethink that, it really has an astronomical effect on your business. And today, on our member growth, on our acquisition ads, savings is less than 5% of total ads. So about 80% is really quality. We have another 15% on convenience, and the rest 5% is on savings. So it really shows you how we flipped the entire value proposition around.
Wow, that's incredible. And as far as, parents or families being a big focal point for you guys, like it's about 3/4 of your new members are parents. Is that right?
Yes. So incoming parents are about 75%. Our existing base is almost near 60% now, but the speed at which we're acquiring, the rate of our acquisition has increased. And so that's been really interesting. And we're seeing parents being higher lifetime value than non-parents. We're seeing that driven by higher order frequency, higher basket size, or average order value. So they're better customers. And it makes sense. They're bigger households. They are buying things anywhere from diapers to personal care for young kids to teens. Just think about the amount of consumption that goes on with a family of 2 or 3 teenagers. It's like suddenly now you have 5 adults in the house, right? So, this was a more subjective call about 18 months ago that we made. And we have actually seen it now being a very data-based call that are giving our business continual dividends down to even their renewal rates are higher than non-parents. And so end to end, they have proven out to be a better, more loyal, more higher renewing customer for us.
That's amazing. I love that idea that you completely flip the script on what value really means and that emphasis on quality. I think it really, reaffirms and validates, some of the conversations and coverage that we've had on Retail Touchpoints around, like, let's think a little more holistically and a little more critically about what value means to your customer. So I absolutely love that. So obviously you found your core customer and it's really showing up in all of these different areas of your business, which is incredible. But for the other customers, I'm curious. What is your approach to like retention marketing, loyalty building for those others? Like, I'm always fascinated by those creative nuances, right? Because obviously there are some core differentiators or value props for each brand that are kind of universal, but then there are other distinct qualities or areas to zero in on for different types of consumers. So is there anything for the non-parents or non-families that have really risen to the top for you?
Yeah, so parents is a key customer cohort, but we know longer term, there are numerous demand spaces, and so we have an army of influencers who are really expert health advisors is how I refer to them. And they are always at the cutting edge of testing new demand spaces, new areas, which we then learn from and then really start elevating. So whether it's longevity, whether it's this concept of food as medicine, whether it's talking to even seniors, and so seniors is a good one to unpack, because when you think about seniors, they have different challenges, right? They often don't want to cook, right? And they don't want to think about how to make their next meal and what to do and be in the kitchen for, an hour. So for them, we think really about like, what are the other assortment ideas we can do? So like frozen. So we got into frozen some time ago, but we've now really expanded our assortment within frozen to healthy meals. And so whether it's a pasta bolognese or whether it's chicken Alfredo, you can just pop that out, defrost it, and you're ready with a meal in literally under 10 minutes, right? Without having to chop a bunch of things, cut a bunch of things. And so there are all these other segments of demand spaces that will continue to be important for us. And we are already in the midst of testing them with our influencers and expert health advisors to see which ones will rise up. The other one, which we have been kind of since the inception of the company, is what we call lifestyle and diet tribes. I don't like the word diet anymore, so I call them more lifestyle tribes. But, we've seen keto now evolve into high protein. We've seen low sugar and low carb is still there. And we see this now not just being a seasonal trend, but year round. People just are recognizing that they may not need to make a dramatic diet change, but they want to make these lifestyle micro changes, right? And so incorporating more protein, cutting out on carbs, choosing a lower sugar option for themselves or even for their children. I was reviewing this morning artwork for low sugar apple juice. Why should apple juice have so much sugar in it? It makes absolutely no sense. Like, we're giving our kids this amount of sugar. And so these are other spaces that are appealing both to parents and non-parents, right? Because we all want to get smarter with our health. We all have personalized health goals, and our journey to those health goals is so unique. But Thrive just wants to be the trusted partner to get you there. And so whether you're doing keto or you're just doing high protein or you're doing the low sugar, low carb, like all of those important lifestyle values, we're there, And then of course, they're the gluten-free, they're the vegans, they're the anti-allergies, all of those. And we market to all of them, right? And so we've gotten very nuanced and sophisticated about who to market where and who our core target is versus who are some of these other niche areas. The other one target that we call our young professionals. So these are, professionals who are early in their career. They don't have time, right? And so we have learned a lot of the messages of healthy swaps works with them. They still want to eat smarter, but they don't know how to do it. And for them, convenience is even more important, right? They really just don't have the time, right? So there are all these other segments that the team focuses on. They're not the bulk or the core, but we know they are future, what we call aircon growth demand spaces that could become rising opportunities that we continue to learn and dabble and personalize and tailor to.
I love that. I love it. And it's so fascinating because there are so many niche groups and so many new like lifestyle choices that lend themselves to so many opportunities for a Thrive market. So it's great that you guys are always thinking about those mini communities, so to speak, and the best ways to not just speak to them, but deliver products and experience for them to make that process a little bit easier. And, we've been talking a lot about quality standards and making sure that you're not just creating a great experience or really a fun campaign, but that the product matches up. And I know Thrive Market prides itself on having an environmentally sustainable operating model. And I'm curious, what work has been done in this area thus far? And does this serve for marketing fodder at all on your side? Because I know some companies try to lean really heavily into that broader, I guess, operations, like sustainable messaging. Is that a focus for you guys or not really?
It's a massive focus. It's a focus for the company. It's a focus also within marketing. So within marketing, we really define what the 5-year mission plan is, which includes environment, sustainability, even our Thrive Gives, which is our one-to-one matching program. And we really look to what our vision is. And our vision in this space is we want to be the world's first climate positive grocery store. So we have a very clear vision. And then we break it down into what are the key pillars to getting there. So we have a climate pillar, we have a certification, an environmental pillar, and we have our Thrive Gives pillar. And for each of those pillars, we really activate a very holistic and thorough action plan. And this is one of the reasons why I joined Thrive Market, is the founders had spent a lot of time to make sure the company was built and started the right way. And so we already were zero waste from day one. We already were on a path to being carbon neutral from day one. We were already doing the right steps in those areas. But what we didn't do was get certified. And so when I came in, it was about, well, how do we get credit for what we do? And you do have to go the extra 11th mile and get yourself certified. And so we then spent a lot of time last year. We got all of our fulfillment centers zero waste certified. And it's a process you have to do every year. But it was amazing to see all 3 of our fulfillment centers step in and just, reach that milestone. We also got our B Corp certification. We were the largest grocery store to do that a few years ago. And we are in the midst of recertifying that this year. And we've seen a dramatic increase in our scores. And it's all the efforts we did on our certifications, as well as being, the first public benefit corporation in this space too. And so all of those things are laddering up to our vision of being that world's first climate positive grocery store. The other one is plastic. We have so many third-party brands. We have our own brand. So we've committed to reducing plastic as well and being plastic neutral certified. These are all aspects of how we take it seriously. We do believe that you have to first go do the work. Then you have to get the credit and recognition for the work. Transparently, we are much better doing the work than getting credit. And so the role of marketing has been, how do we then inform to our members that they are voting smarter with their dollar? And so we are in the midst of working an evergreen CRM content series where as you come in as a member, you start seeing all of these sustainable improvements that we've made. You see all of the certifications that we're getting. You also see the families. So we have a Thrive Gives matching family for every paid membership. That we give a Gives one to a family or a veteran or a student or teacher in need. But we never share the stories. And so marketing now takes that upon them for every paid member coming in, sharing back the stories of those members that they helped. It could be an EBT SNAP member, it could be a teacher, a veteran, but you start feeling that you are part of not a grocery store, but of a mission-led brand. And that's where the nuance comes and that's where the difference is. And so all of those things then get connected back to the marketing program.
It's fascinating. I always love to hear because taking a step back, I've been covering retail for 12, 13 years at this point. And anytime we would talk about things like supply chain or operations, it was kind of like the stuff that we had to talk about transparently. I would much rather cover marketing and customer experience. But over the past, I want to say 4 or 5 years, we've really started to see the narrative change. And maybe it's because of brands like Thrive Market, right? That it is discussed, but through the lens of customer experience and, what it means to the brand's mission and values. And we talked about flipping the script earlier, right? And I think companies like yours really are flipping the script on like what it means to talk about supply chain and operations and logistics, right? Because it's become a bigger value discussion. So anyways, off my soapbox, but it's just fascinating to hear how those dots connect within your organization and like how marketing helps carry things over the finish line, so to speak. And it really resonates with the consumer. And, Thrive Market has been on such an incredible growth journey. I think by the time this episode is live, it'll be officially 10 years old, which is very exciting. And I guess as we run out our conversation, like I'd love your thoughts and insights on, I guess this is a two-parter. One, the big milestones or key marketing moments over the last 10 years, and really what's top of mind and driving you over the next 10 years.
Yeah, so I shared the half 10-year milestone with
Right.
Thrive. So I've hit my 5 years as Thrive hits its 10 years. And it's been just amazing, amazing, amazing to see what the brand has accomplished in 10 years. And it does feel like there's been a lot accomplished the past 5 years too. And so there's definitely a double click there. I think to me, the fact that we were mission born has always been, the inception of the company itself has been the biggest milestone, that we were not backed into a mission like, a lot of some of these big brands have to do. And so that has been our North Star. That has never changed. For me, the other big milestone has been in 2020 when we got hit with COVID. Everyone was like, what do we need to do to survive? But we were very externally focused. And we said, what do we need to do to help, right? And we saw that food equality had gotten exacerbated. There were over 55 million Americans who were affected by it. And we said, how can we help? And how do we put a stake in the ground? And so we raised a Food Equality Now campaign where we said we'd raise $10 million in healthy groceries and stipends. And to me, it's remarkable that we have raised already 16 million. So we beat that goal. And now we've set another goal for 20 million by 25, but I'm pretty confident we'll get there hopefully by the end of next year, just given the trajectory. The other big one was earlier this year, which every time I talk about it, it feels like it happened years ago. And maybe because it took us so many years to get it, was the acceptance of EBT SNAP for our members. And this was a huge one. We're the first online retailer to do this. And it took us many, many years to get this over the hump. It was definitely not an easy play and pitch. But the fact that now, when we think about accessibility is such a core part of our mission, you can use your SNAP EBT card to shop at Thrive Market. It's just been monumental, right? And then in 2021, we got on the Times 100 most influential companies list. So back to your point, we really have a role to play, not just for our consumer and our member, absolutely, and for our employees, our Thrivers, but more importantly in the industry, right? And that is the new role of the CMO, is to not just influence their marketing and their mission and be an insular, phenomenal leader, but to actually act as a catalyst for industry change and growth, for doing what's going to have a bigger impact in the industry space that you're in, and really fighting for what's right and doing the hard goods with heart and passion. And it can only happen if you believe and are so mission enthusiastic, right? That you can lead your organization through some of those really persevering challenges. So all of those things to me are like just testaments of it. We've also hit over 1.5 million members. So that's another testament to how the membership model really, really works. And to me, while we've hit 1.5, I also remind myself in the next 10 years, we've got millions and millions and millions more families to go, right? And so a lot has been accomplished, but your second question was on where we're going to go next. So the mission, while alive with 1.5 million members, we have, got 20, 30, 40 million more members to go. We're also really looking how to really expand both our innovation and our categories and our assortment, starting with wellness parents, but even beyond wellness parents. So that's going to be a big one. We continually upgrade our experience, both to win again with design target parents, but there's just so much you can do. So currently we have our smart cart shopping. So we use an AI algorithm that helps generate the right products for you based on your quiz answers. And that technology is only going to get more smarter, more refined, and more sharper over the next few years. And to the point where we are basically building your entire cart for you, right? And so that's kind of the future forward of what we're calling smart shopping, which I'm incredibly excited about. We already have what I call the Healthy Swap Scanner, which you can go and try out. It's on our search bar. And if you tap on the search bar, you can basically scan any product, any unhealthy product, like let's take M&Ms, and Thrive will recommend you the healthy version, right? So a lot of people have told us they often just don't know. And so we've created this healthy swap scanner. And so we expect to launch more innovative features like that to make this journey of healthy living just easy and convenient and fast, so you can continue to shop at ease, things that retail just wouldn't be able to do. So yeah, those are all the things. And so we also will continue to scale marketing. So we're already in the midst of, cracking streaming, and linear TV will be next, etc. So there'll be more awareness around us. But to me, the journey has just started. Super excited for what the next 10 years can unfold.
So exciting. I mean, those technology innovations in particular, I mean, there is a lot of creative meat there to tackle, so to speak. And obviously digging into the next decade in a couple of minutes is a lot to think about. But you mentioned earlier in our conversation how the January period is very significant for Thrive Market. And I heard it referred to as Q5. So maybe to close out, you tell us anything happening in the near term as you ramp up or prepare for that particular period of time. Anything we should be keeping an eye on?
Yeah. So, I mean, anyone who's in the health space knows that holidays are a time when we all kind of loosen our bellies, let's say, and, are consuming a lot more of the unhealthy areas than we normally would. And so we've seen this humongous phenomenon. It actually starts on the eve of December 26th. So literally December 26th comes and we just see a dramatic drop on our CPAs and our cost per acquisitions for members, because suddenly there's a psychological shift. I've got through Christmas and I got to get ready for the new year. And, it literally happens even before January. It happens in that last week. We call it Q5 because we call it a quarter worth of demand. It literally a month happens in that 30-day period, and it extends all the way through Q3. But January really is our biggest month in that period. And so we've seen this historically always happen in our business, being very seasonally fueled, because people start really wanting to have their health goals. And I tied to the gym memberships because I go pretty much every day to the gym myself. And in January, it's the only month I never find parking. And I'm like, every other month I can get parking. And January, I have to park like a mile away from the entrance. So we see the same kind of queuing happening with Thrive Market, where people just really want to pay for the membership. They really want to start eating healthy, and the healthy habits start. And we used to think that was the only quarter. But as I talked previously, now we've learned that for parents, there's another secret quarter, which is the back to school, where they want their kids to also be eating healthy and getting back into healthy habits. So yeah, so Q5 to Q3, we're going to be quite busy in 2025.
Amazing. Well, it seems like you have it more than handled. A lot of really exciting things happening in the now, a lot of exciting things to come. But Amina, I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with me, share a little bit more about your journey, the work that you and your team are doing, and of course, just your general perspectives on how marketing is changing. It's truly a sector that I love reporting on. I love speaking to CMOs like yourself, because I really do think marketing is equal parts psychology, art, and culture. And, you guys are doing some incredible work. So thank you again so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. No, it totally is. It's all the things: art, culture, intuition, judgment, data. You've got to be able to kind of connect all the dots to figure it out. So loved being here. And thank you for your thoughtful questions. It was really great.
Pleasure is all mine. And to all of you listening, if you have any follow-up questions for Amina, of course, you can connect with us on LinkedIn at Retail Touchpoints. We're on X sometimes at our Touchpoints, but we'll tag Amina and the Thrive Market team on LinkedIn. That way we can keep the conversation going. I mean, it is such an exciting time for marketing, for the creative space in general. So we really think having these discussions, sharing lessons learned, sharing tips, tricks, what's worked, what hasn't, and how you plan to move forward, that's how positive change and innovation happen. So be sure to connect with us on social media. And of course, leave us a rating or review on your preferred podcast player. That way you can tell us how we did, how we can change, and what we need to do more of. And of course, while you're there, be sure to subscribe to the show. We have new episodes coming to you weekly, and we're speaking with folks like Amina, who are not just incredible thought leaders in the space, but are really rolling up their sleeves and doing the work themselves. But for now, that's it from us, everyone. We will see you next time. Take care. Thanks again for joining us for this new episode of Retail Remix. We have one more week of new content lined up for you, but after that, we're going to be taking a bit of a break to recharge, reinvigorate the show, and provide you with some new content and new experiences. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't subscribe if you haven't done so already, because if you do through your preferred podcast player, you will get an alert when we are ready to return back to your ears. But until then, my friends, be well, don't forget, keep mixing it up.